Good morning and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this another brand new week of September, the 11th of September. It's 19 degrees and sunny here in Brisbane and looking like a beautiful day out there. Best part of the year when it is neither too hot nor too cold. Well, that's my personal preference and I'm sticking to that. It looks just amazing and wonderful. Well, right now, let's get on with the news for today and see what's in store. With the big talk of town is the G20 summit in India. Let's take a look at what Anthony Albanese hails as an voted out agreement at the G20.
A moment of reflection for a preacher of peace. World leaders gather in New Delhi at a memorial for Mahatma Gandhi.
We shall now have a moment's silence, please.
After weeks of wrangling ahead of the G20 summit, leaders agreed on a joint statement that highlighted the human suffering of the war in Ukraine, including impacts on global food and energy security, while also noting different views and assessments of the situation. A line needed to appease G20 members, Russia and China.
Russia has to have gotten the message that this is having a devastating impact and that the world wants this war to stop.
Tensions aside, deals were being done. The US and EU putting their weight behind a new trade corridor, linking India, the Middle East and Europe, seen by some as a counter to China's contentious Belt and Road Initiative.
As we work to address infrastructure gaps across low and middle income countries, we need to maximize the impacts of our investments.
Bonjour. How are you?
I'm fine.
How good was the rugby?
The Australian Prime Minister also talking business, meeting European leaders and pushing a stalled free trade deal with the EU.
We won't sign up to an agreement for the sake of having an agreement. We'll sign up to an agreement that is in Australia's national interest.
This summit has been a carefully staged, managed event designed to showcase Narendra Modi's India to the world. But if India wants to take an ever greater place on the world stage, its cautious diplomatic line, embracing Western leaders while refusing to strongly criticise Russia, will be ever more difficult to manage. Tom Lowry, ABC News, New Delhi.
Yeah, there's some amazing pics coming out of the G20 Leaders Summit in New Delhi and the joint resolution that has been passed. It is in very, very good interest and I think that resolution that has been passed is quite a substantial one and I think it will have a good impact in the global peace. Well, right now, the thick haze that's blanketing the Sydney.
Alison Zhao joins us now from a very hazy Sydney. Good morning, Alison. So how's the air quality at the moment?
Lisa, it is quite smoky here in Sydney at the moment and it is all to do with these major hazard reduction burns that took place over the last few days by the New South Wales Rural Fire Service. They're hoping that these hazard reduction burns will mean a less intense fire season this summer, but it has meant that this thick smoke has blanketed Sydney overnight, and this footage that was taken overnight around Sydney's west in Homebush and further east towards the inner west near Tempe, that all shows many areas that were covered in smoke and haze. Fire and rescue crews were also kept busy overnight with multiple fire alarms that were set off by this smoke in commercial and residential premises. And much of this smoke is to do with these reduction burns that were scheduled to take place earlier on Friday but ended up being postponed till the weekend because of that weather we had on Friday. So there were burns in Sutherland that took place over the weekend as well as further north towards Hornsby and the Central Coast. There was also a major 2,700 hectare burn around the Holsworthy military barracks that was also postponed until the weekend, and the warning is that this smoke is likely to linger until midweek. Air quality readings also show that the air quality in Sydney, particularly around the east of the city, is very poor currently. So there is a warning for people who do have asthma or other lung conditions that they should stay indoors as much as possible and really reduce any strenuous exercise taking place outdoors. And many people around Sydney this morning have woken up to this smell of smoke and complained about this smell, and there is a warning that it is likely to linger until the middle of the week.
All right, Alison, good to know all that. Thank you.
And thank you very much for that report. And good morning, Cyril, and good morning, Devika. Yes, the G20 going has been very, very good. Well, right now, let's move on to from New South Wales. Let's go right now to Northern Territory, where a similar situation of smoke, as we know, Australia is what it is today, over the years having evolved through fires. It has been that land where there has been so many fires and the banning central of Australia, which is always hot and dry. So here's the news from Northern Territory.
Skies over the Barkly shrouded in smoke as 10,000 square kilometres of dry bushland go up in flames.
Well above one of our biggest that we've had, certainly one of the biggest ones I've been involved in.
Crews working day and night to battle the blaze east of Tennant Creek, which has now jumped the Barkly Highway.
We've got about 1 million head of cattle in the Barkly region alone at this time, so we're really concerned about trying to hold this fire up and other fires so that those cattle aren't impacted.
Spreading rapidly and advancing west towards Tennant Creek, crews setting up fire breaks to hold the blaze back from the town. Strong winds testing volunteers and pastoralists who are already stretched to the limits.
So we're working continuously to try and get rotations down there and get our people off the fire ground and give them some respite. There's been some people work some really long hours.
The Emergency Management Council in Darwin have called for backup, with 2 South Australian strike teams due to arrive on Wednesday. A New South Wales expert also flown in to analyse the fire's spread. The situation is changing rapidly and authorities say it could be more than a week before the blaze is brought under control. Water bombers were diverted this afternoon to a separate fire on the outskirts of Tennant Creek, which also destroyed at least one home. Part of the Barkly Highway was closed to traffic during the day, leaving truckies and travellers stranded on either side.
There's probably about 10 or 12 road trains banked up. They're over off to my left. They're parked at the moment.
And with the whole of the territory declared a fire danger area until March, firefighters are gearing up for a dangerous season ahead. Lillian Rangier, ABC.
And this is what I meant about, the fire danger now has been declared to continue till March. So that's the warning that's been put out in place. And that's how Australia has been dry. And whenever the fire breaks out, it just goes on forever. And I remember growing up, we used to hear about the smoke and the fires burning in Australia. Well, right now, here we are. Okay, right now to Queensland, where the ambulance confirms that the death of a man from a snake bite. This is Queensland.
The reports are that he was with a friend. They were actually at a 100-year celebration for the school, and the snake was around his friend's leg and he was helping remove that snake. It is really hard to say with any certainty what type of snake it is, or snake it was, and it's very hard for us to actually identify snakes. From the symptoms that the patient had and the cardiac collapse, and it would be more than likely a brown snake, but again, that is just a guess.
And for that, I would say that my good friend Alan Ball, the director of White Ribbon, is fortunate to be alive. He was in Philippines where he got bitten by a snake. He was showing me his legs where the 2 prongs hit. There's still marks there. And he's on the recovery mode. I've been asked to wear loose clothes only. And he survived that and the medical system that's available there. So good on you, Cheryl. We have very good facilities here. And he was talking about how the ordeal that he had with the medical system back there in Philippines when he got bit by a snake. Well, right now, the other news that everyone's talking about is housing. Well, whenever a situation arises, how do we act or do we react? Many times we start doing things, to overcome the situation that is now, but we know that whatever measures we put in place cannot be put in immediately. It takes time. So what will happen by the time these things are ready? We talked about the detention centers, the isolation center when COVID hit. By the time they were built and ready, COVID was gone. So here we are at the moment with a shortage of houses, So the construction has begun. What impact will it have in the long term?
It's been a long wait, but this 2-hectare block on Churchill Road at Prospect will be full of townhouses and rentals in the next few years.
Of those 180 homes, 55% are allocated to be affordable housing.
But there are even bigger prizes around Adelaide. The government's talking to the Commonwealth about seizing the Keswick Barracks and could be putting in a bid for the former West End Brewery at Theberton to drastically increase the supply of affordable homes.
The state government is serious about acquiring strategic parcels of land where we can do strategic infill to put more supply into the market as quickly as possible in a thoughtful, master-planned way.
Ben Griffiths hopes his family will soon be able to find its first house after years of searching.
A lot of heartache and strife, but now that there's something possibly in our future where we could feasibly afford it, does make life a little bit easier.
Emma Smith worries her life is about to get harder.
In fact, 2.5 weeks on, and the residents, I live on that road.
She confronted the Premier over the government's plan to ban trucks from Hahndorf's Main Street and divert them along River Road.
There will, mark my words, be a fatality on that road. And, well, you obviously haven't seen it.
It is a concern for residents, it is a concern for truckies using this road, and it should be a concern for anyone, whether they live in this community or are visiting this community.
The government says trucks already use the road and it's spending $40 million on safety upgrades in the area. Imogen Hain, ABC News, Adelaide.
So safety upgrades for the road that is already being used. The road in question is River Road, there in Adelaide, and this is the sign of time. So what do? We can't stop progress. Progress will happen, and some of the roads that have been there for a long time now, the upgrades are with a lot of safety things. A lot more regulations are in place. There's a lot more regulation for drivers, all the things that have been checked. But even then, things happen, and there are always concerns, some very well-founded concerns from the community as well. So the community consultation has to be in place, and for the government, it is that hard balancing act where you have to please the community so that they're happy as well, plus the industry that is ever growing needs to be sustained and managed in a safe manner. Right now, New South Wales conducts hazard reduction bans. And those are the pictures that we talked about earlier on. Right now, we will move on to our next news where volunteers put to good use. Volunteers, teenagers are helping to volunteer bring Meals on Wheels, a very good story.
The Shark Bay School is quiet from the outside on a Saturday. But inside the kitchen is a hive of activity. A group of teenage students, under the guidance of volunteer parents and school staff, are busy preparing 50 meals.
We are right now cooking sticky date pudding, chicken soup and spaghetti bolognese because they were the recommendations from the last time.
The sessions happen about twice a term, and this is the 7th Isabella Court has been involved in.
If you're a part of it, it's like you're doing something good and you're giving back to the community that has gave to you.
After the morning cooking, the food is packaged up and delivered to the front door of 50 older locals.
Wonderful, thank you so much, you're wonderful kids.
For Helen Morgan and her husband Peter, it's welcome.
But they do a fantastic job and they're all very enthusiastic. It's just wonderful to see.
The occasional Meals on Wheels program began through the local youth group.
I think it was a way of getting our youth to connect with their community in a different way that they may not have had that opportunity to do so before.
A cross-generational connection with benefits for everyone involved. Rosemary Murphy, ABC News, Denham.
And let's end on that note, which is a wonderful, wonderful news. Our youngsters are energetic. They have got good ideas, but they need that guidance from the elders to be, put in a program like that. And look at them; they're all happily doing what they have to do, preparing those meals and delivering to the elderly, who are ever so grateful to receive that. And it's a very good example. That's a stepping stone into community work that will groom them further. It will train them, and they'll know that these are the things. So we need to engage our youth into this kind of meaningful and purposeful activities. Well done. Really, really good news to end today's thing. Well, ladies and gentlemen, right now, let's go to our functions and events. So there you are, ladies and gentlemen, up to date on Australian Indian Radio. There's quite a lot of functions and events that are taking place. If you have a function or event that you'd like publicized, please do contact Dilraj in our radio station, Australian Indian Radio or Brisbane Indian Times, prod@indiantimes.com.au, and we'll be more than happy to partner with you on the media parts of things. Well, ladies and gentlemen, until tomorrow, it's goodbye from us.